name is Walter. I'm a former U.S. Navy veteran, and at the time of this storytelling, I am a former retired railroad worker. I am at present only a couple of months shy of turning 79 years old. I now occupy my time as a YouTube creator, where I create a video now and then or tell a story or two, and host the Pwalpar channel. So on this Sunday afternoon, I will sit here at my computer desk and tell you a story inspired by events earlier in my life. Ever since I was but a small tyke, I was always an outdoors type of child who roamed in the woods endlessly. As I grew up, my love of the outdoors never changed. I loved to wet a hook occasionally. I once ran a set of fish traps in a creek and ran a set of rabbit traps. I did my share of rabbit and squirrel hunting as well. My first real gun was a Red Ryder BB gun. I'll show you a link to that story at the end of the video if I think about it. In my experiences in the wild, I've encountered snakes, wild boars, alligators, skunks, wild dogs, even a black panther once in the Florida swamps. I later served a hitch in the U.S. Navy and began my railroad career. But I continued with my love of hunting and fishing and was comfortable when it come to roaming the woods on days when I wasn't roaming the wilds of the railroad train yard. I thought being experienced in the ways of the wild made me immune to the topic of today's story, but there came a day when it was proven that I was not immune to having an episode of buck fever. Today I share a hunting story. This is Walter's buck fever story. It was later in the year of 1970. I wanted to go deer hunting. It hadn't dawned on me that I was quite ill prepared for such a trip. I had been reading lots of hunting magazines that were written by various hunters, their exploits in the woods and their successful hunts. I thought I was fully ready. Had me some new hunting boots, a nice warm coat, some deer scent, a hunting knife for skinning my anticipated kills. I had my new hunting license, a bright orange hat and a vest. Deer are practically blind to orange color, I'm told, something I totally doubt. I did not have a gun to hunt with and was going to purchase me one, but my father had invited himself along on my trip. I have a gun you can use, he told me. The first day of hunting season opened. I was anxious, anticipating the hunt. I was working the second shift at the Southern Railway train yards in Atlanta, and my off days were Wednesday and Thursday. Tuesday came around when I got off work at 11 p.m. I popped into my 1969 Mercury Montego and drove to North Georgia to my parents' farm in the Hemptown community near Morganton, Georgia. Morganton's probably 8 miles from Blue Ridge. Arriving around 1 a.m., I caught a few hours of sack time and was woken up by my father around 5:30 a.m. "Are we going hunting or what?" he asked. Before daylight, we were on the road in his old pickup truck, headed farther up into the North Georgia mountains along U.S. Highway 60, headed into the Chattahoochee National Forest towards Cooper's Creek Wildlife Management Area. Cooper's Creek is a wildlife management area, is one of Georgia's largest wildlife management areas. It spans more than 30,000 acres and lies within the Chattahoochee National Forest. This WMA is located in the extreme northeast corner of Georgia and nearly borders North Carolina. This WMA offers hunting opportunities for deer, bear, turkey, and small game. This property is owned by the U.S. Forest Service, who manages all non-hunting aspects of their property, such as roads, recreations, land management. I had been to Cooper's Creek trout fishing, but this was my first ever hunting trip there. Cooper's Creek flows down out of the mountains and in places parallels a winding dirt road which begins at Suches, Georgia, just off Highway 6. Neither of us knew where to find a good hunting spot when we got there, where we could legally find a hide and wait for some unexpected deer to show himself anywhere within firing range. We drove slowly up the mountain road, following the creek. We hadn't driven more than a mile or two when I looked down the mountainside across a large open field, and I said, "Stop the truck." I was looking out to the left side of the truck, and it was an awesome view of an open field amid all the heavily wooded forest. About a mile down the mountain were some structures which I assumed were part of the community of Suches, Georgia. What had attracted my attention was movement in the field about 200 yards from where we were stopped on the dirt road. It was a massive buck deer with a huge set of antlers, and he was less than 50 yards from the creek. He looked our way for a moment. He sniffed the air and trotted off up the mountainside into the woods. There was an old, overgrown timber road headed down the hill in that general direction. Where I had last seen that huge deer. "There's the one I want to shoot," I said. My father said, "Oh, he's gone now." "I'll bet you $50 he didn't go far," I said. I knew my father had no intention of walking more than 50 feet from his truck to hunt anything. "Let me out," I demanded, "and give me a gun. We will go back to the store at the highway back there and get some supplies," he said. I was frustrated, but I agreed. We turned the truck, drove back to the store. I bought some candy bars. The old man bought some Red Man chewing tobacco, which is the only reason we probably went back there. And he got him a 6-pack of his favorite beer. Someone remind me to tell y'all sometime about when the sheriff got behind us with his blue light flashing, and the old man said, "Here, hold my beer, Walt." Within an hour, we were back where I had seen the deer earlier. He pulled off the road and we got out. He had 2 shotguns and handed me a 12-gauge Remington semi-automatic, a gun I still possess all these years later. "What, no rifle?" I asked. "This is all you need," he said. I had my doubts, but I shoved 4 rounds of 12-gauge buckshot into my pocket, and on second thought I also grabbed 2 shotgun slugs and put them in my other pocket. A slug is a big lead projectile shoved inside a shotgun shell. It basically turns a shotgun into a cannon that will annihilate about anything if fired within its limited range. My father was a person who throughout my childhood had never seemed to have any confidence in my abilities. He just leaned against his truck with a mouthful of chewing tobacco as I began my walk down the overgrown timber road that I could see clearly. I looked back towards him, and he just spit a stream of tobacco juice into the road. It was obvious he was thinking I would not see that deer again.
"Trust me, that deer is gone."
I, in turn, was thinking he should at least pick up his gun, because should a careless deer appear anywhere in the range of him, he wouldn't be quick enough to do anything short of shooting his own toe off. As I began my walk, I shoved 3 rounds of buckshot into the Remington 1100 semi-automatic shotgun. Then I racked one into the chamber and added the 4th round of buckshot into the gun. It was a bright, sunny morning. quite late to be getting started on a hunt. I made sure the safety was on and walked quietly down the road, which was adjacent to the open field where I had seen the deer. There was adequate vegetation to conceal me from view from any deer that might be out in the field. I walked around 200 yards, stopped close to where I had seen that beautiful buck earlier in the day. Now I was about 80 yards from the creek. I was close enough to hear the water flowing in the creek. Birds were chirping, a large red-tailed hawk circled above me, and no deer was to be seen anywhere in the field. The wind was blowing from behind me as I faced the creek. Good, I thought, if he returns, he will not be able to smell my scent. I should have found a hide right there, but I couldn't be sure from which direction he might come, so I opted to cross the open field and hunkered down just over the edge of the creek bed. I laid on the creek bed facing the mountainside, which I had last seen him running away from. Wow, I thought, if he comes out in this field, I'll have a clear shot at him. I lay on the creek bed on a grassy slope hidden by some tall straw grass, but I had a clear view of anything reasonably close. Beyond the field, the terrain sloped steeply uphill into a leaf-strewn partial area with large hardwood trees sporadically growing in random places, but due to the fact it was winter, there was no leaves on the trees, so I had a clear view of the slope to a ridge about a quarter-mile distance. I thought to myself as I waited, that deer I saw had a monster set of antlers, maybe 12 points. Come on, big guy, I'm a-waiting for you, I muttered. I rested the 12 gauge on the ground, took off the safety. I won't pick it up until I'm ready to shoot, I thought. I was propped up on my forearms, casually thumbing through some gravel, digging out of the brownish red rock there in the Georgia red clay, thinking, is this a ruby? Then I heard the noise of leaves rustling and twigs breaking up on the ridge. I listened intently as my heartbeat increased and my blood pressure rose. Overhead, the hawk was back and circling the field, and he was screeching, "Ee, ee, ee," in an effort to flush out some prey, or perhaps he was calling a warning. Look out, there's an idiot down there with an orange vest, and he has a shotgun. There's a condition that sometimes affects hunters, called buck fever, but it wasn't on my mind that day at all. I was completely unaware that I was about to experience it. It's an involuntary rush of adrenaline that hunters can get, causing a panic-stricken response, and the hunter's liable to do any kind of crazy thing like rushing his shot, even affecting his clear thinking. I had served in the military. There I carried weapons, and certain had the issue had ever arose, I would have been clear thinking and could have, if necessary, done my duty and shot someone and defended my ship without so much as a second thought. The sound grew louder and my pulse was raising. Then I saw him. Wow, he's bigger than I realized. What a trophy. The nervous excitement had started as a great rush of adrenaline pulsed through my veins. I watched as he descended the hill about a halfway down the slope. He stopped and turned sideways, looking off of his right side down the hill towards me. He was at this point about 150 yards away, but in my excitement he seemed to be much closer. Darn, I thought, I should have stayed over there on the timber road. Then I would be a lot closer. He stood motionless, listening and sniffing the air for several moments. My eyes were like a zoom lens on a camera, and I had a clear view of him. I had hoped he would come down into the clearing, but now it seemed as though he may turn and go the other way. He nervously flicked his white tail as a truck went by somewhere down in the distance on that gravelly dirt road where my father was last seen standing by his truck. I was trained to shoot rifle and pistol in the Navy, but I had never hunted with a shotgun, and in my adrenaline-flowing condition, it didn't even dawn on me that he needed to be within 50 yards to have a good shot at him. Well, I thought, I will never in my lifetime have this opportunity again. I raised the shotgun and aimed. He's pretty far off. I better elevate a little bit. I rested my breathing and fired. Boom! The shot missed and echoed all through the valley, and hunters for miles had heard it. Somewhere up the road, my father choked on a large wad of red man chewing tobacco. The deer heard it too. He just froze. Due to the echoes, had no idea which way to run. Had I chosen the slug rather than the buckshot, I might have hit him, but I didn't know at that time. It's got a greater range. I stood up and fired at him again. Boom! The deer froze, still confused about which way to run, because the echoes were bouncing all through the mountains. Oh, damn, I thought. He's too far away. I ran 2/3 of the way across the clearing to get closer, and stopped. I raised the gun and expended my last 2 shells of buckshot in his general direction. He was still standing there like a statue. I remembered the 2 slugs in my pocket and shoved them into the gun, racked one into the chamber. By then, he had seen me and knew which way to run to get away from me. Boom, boom, 2 slugs followed him as he made a mad dash to get away from this maniac with his barrage of artillery. By now, every hunter within miles thought I was shooting up a whole herd of deer. My father heard him coming his way, but only saw a blur as he went near him on his way up the mountain into the high country. More shots were heard in the distance as he passed other hunters heading up the ridge, but I thoroughly doubt anyone got him that day. When I got to my father's truck, he was standing there by his truck, looking sheepish with tobacco juice all down the front of his coat where he had choked on his wad of red man tobacco. Tomorrow I'm buying a rifle, I said. We drove home that afternoon as I told my story about how he just kept standing there, so I just kept shooting. Sure he did, my father said, with a crooked smile, not believing a word I had said. You just had buck fever, he said. I purchased a Winchester Marlin lever-action .35 caliber rifle shortly after that, and over the years I went hunting many times with my rifle, and sometimes on black powder hunts with my newly acquired .45 caliber Kentucky long rifle. The story that I have just shared with you is a true story. It's the only time I ever got a shot off at a trophy deer. I saw a deer occasionally, but never fired at one again. I did enjoy trying to find that opportunity again on my many hunts, but I never did. I still have my guns locked away in the gun safe, but have not hunted in the last 25 years. Some viewers dislike the idea of hunting for your dinner in the wild, but don't think twice about eating a hamburger or a steak. These products come from animals just as alive as that deer was. At least I gave him a fighting chance to survive. Much more of a chance than an animal going to slaughter gets. I feel I must point out that hunters pay for the opportunity to hunt all over America. The money they spend to pay for the privilege helps provide revenue to hire game wardens and run wildlife management areas. The hunting equipment they purchase adds to the American economy, so consider that before complaining about shooting poor Bambi. Deer population has to be controlled to to keep them from overpopulating. There are too many deer in the woods, and we often see them hit by automobiles along the roads. If you have listened to my story today, know that I greatly appreciate your time and support. If you have a similar story, share it with us in the comment section. Stop a second and tell me where in the world you're watching from. It helps my channel here on YouTube. This Pwalpar wishing all my viewers well.